What happens when a man lets himself be watched on purpose? Why would I allow a camera meant for a dog to point at my desk instead? By the time my wife finally reviewed the footage, she understood that nothing she saw was an accident. Before we continue, we ask you to hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We would like to get to know our audience better. The camera arrived on a Tuesday afternoon in a box covered with cartoon paw prints. Mara set it on the kitchen counter and smiled at me the way people smile when they've already made up their minds about something. "It's for Bailey," she said, unwrapping the small white device from its plastic packaging, "so we can check on him when we're out." Bailey was our golden retriever. He spent most of his time sleeping in the corner of the living room on a fleece bed shaped like a cloud. He didn't need monitoring. He needed nothing except food, water, and the occasional scratch behind the ears. He was 8 years old and had never destroyed furniture, never had an accident indoors, never given us a reason to worry. I nodded from my spot at the kitchen table. My back had been acting up again that morning, a dull grinding pain that started in my lower spine and radiated down my left leg. Sitting helped. Standing made it worse. Walking was a negotiation. "That's thoughtful," I said, keeping my voice neutral. She carried it into my office without asking permission. I heard her moving things around, the soft shuffle of papers, the click of the device being plugged into the outlet near my bookshelf. When she came back out, she was wiping her hands on her jeans like she'd just finished something important. "All set," she said brightly. "You can check the app if you want. It's called Pet Watch. I already downloaded it." I downloaded it that evening after she'd gone to bed. The interface was simple. A live feed showed my desk from the corner of the room, the angle slightly elevated. My chair sat empty. My laptop was closed on the desk. The stack of invoices I'd been reviewing was arranged in neat piles. The window behind my desk overlooked the backyard. Bailey's bed was just barely visible at the edge of the frame, cut off at an angle. I stood up slowly and walked to my office. I adjusted the camera with careful precision. Not much, just 2 inches to the left. Now the dog bed filled more of the screen, centered and obvious. I stepped back and checked the app. Perfect. I didn't mention the adjustment to Mara. Mara's parents came over on Thursday evening. They'd been doing that more often lately, stopping by unannounced, letting themselves in with the spare key Mara had given them years ago. Eldon and Sylvia Kravick. Her father was broad-shouldered and loud, the kind of man who filled a room just by walking into it. Her mother was smaller, sharper, always watching. Eldon stood in the doorway of my office and looked at the camera mounted on the shelf. "That's new," he said. "For the dog," I said without looking up. He laughed, a sound that came from deep in his chest. "Hell, Kellan, you barely leave that chair anyway. Might as well point it at you instead of the mutt." I didn't respond. I'd learned that silence worked better with Eldon than explanation. Sylvia appeared behind him, her hand resting on his shoulder. "It's smart, really," she said warmly. "Mara worries about you being here alone all day. This way she can check in." "I'm fine," I said. "Of course you are," she said, her smile never wavering. They stayed for dinner. Mara made pasta with marinara sauce and garlic bread. Eldon talked about the roofing business throughout the meal. My roofing business, the one I'd built from nothing over 15 years. "You need to think about scaling," he said between bites. "You've got steady contracts, but you're not growing. You're treading water. In business, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backward." "We're stable," I said. "The margins are healthy. The client base is solid." "Stable isn't enough." He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "You've got to expand, or someone else will. That's how business works now." Mara looked between us. She didn't say anything. After they left, I went back to my office. The red light on the camera blinked once, then stayed solid. Recording. I opened my laptop and pulled up the company files. Contracts, payroll records, inventory logs. Everything was in order because I made sure it stayed in order. I ran the business from this desk now. The injury had made that necessary. I couldn't climb ladders anymore, couldn't haul shingles. But I could manage. I could plan. I could keep 22 people employed with benefits and consistent paychecks. Eldon didn't understand that. He saw a man sitting down and assumed weakness. I looked at the camera. The lens was small, no bigger than a dime. Innocent looking. It sat on the shelf across from me, silent and patient. I wondered if Mara was watching right now. I wondered what she saw. The injury happened 2 years ago, on a cold morning in November. I was on a job site checking the flashing around a rooftop HVAC unit when the ladder shifted beneath me. I don't remember the fall itself, just the dreamlike sensation of weightlessness followed by sudden impact. I remember the sound my body made when it hit the concrete loading dock, 3 fractured vertebrae in my lumbar spine, 6 weeks in a rigid brace that made sleeping impossible. Physical therapy 3 times a week for 6 months with a woman named Janet who was relentlessly cheerful. The therapy helped with mobility but didn't fix the underlying damage. The vertebrae had healed in a way that left them structurally sound but functionally compromised. The doctor told me I could still work, but not the way I used to. No heavy lifting over 20 pounds, no prolonged standing, no climbing, no positions that put torque on my lower back. So I adapted. I started working from home. I handed on-site management to my crew leads, 3 men I'd trained myself over years of working together. Tommy handled residential jobs. Frank took commercial contracts. Luis managed emergency repairs. I handled everything else from my desk. Bidding, scheduling, client relationships, accounting. It worked better than expected. The business didn't slow down. Revenue stayed steady. Client retention actually improved because I was available to respond immediately. But Mara started looking at me differently. At first, it was subtle. She'd ask if I needed help with things I'd been doing for years. She'd mention how tired I looked. She'd suggest I take it easy, skip the gym, postpone a meeting. Then her parents got involved. Eldon started calling more frequently, always during business hours, always with questions framed as casual interest. He'd ask how I was managing the transition, whether the business was maintaining momentum, whether I'd considered bringing in help. I told him I didn't need assistance. He gave advice anyway. Sylvia was quieter, but more persistent. She'd stop by with groceries we hadn't requested, with casseroles that appeared in our refrigerator, with questions about my health. She'd sit in the kitchen with Mara for hours, their voices low, punctuated by glances toward my office. They stopped being subtle about those glances after a while. One afternoon in late spring, I heard Sylvia's voice carry from the kitchen. "You can't expect him to keep this up forever, sweetheart. He's in pain every single day. Eventually something's going to break." I waited for Mara to defend me. She didn't. "I know," Mara finally said quietly. "I just don't know what to do." "You protect what you've built together," Sylvia said. "You make sure the business survives even if Kellan can't keep working at this pace." After that conversation, I started paying closer attention. I noticed the way Mara shared information about the business with her parents, details I hadn't shared with her, profit margins, client names, project specifics that she must have been reading from documents on my desk. I noticed Eldon's questions becoming specific. "Are you getting the Reller contract? What's your net this quarter?" I noticed Sylvia framing everything as concern, as family loyalty. I noticed nobody asked me what I wanted. One evening in June, Mara brought it up directly. We were in the bedroom. She was folding laundry. I was lying on my side, knees drawn up to ease pressure on my spine. "Dad thinks you should bring someone in," she said without looking at me. "Someone to help with the business side." "I don't need help," I said calmly. I'm managing fine." "You're doing too much. You're at that desk 10 hours a day minimum." "That's what running a business requires." She stopped folding and turned to face me. "You're in pain, Kellan. Every single day. I see you wince when you stand up. Don't pretend you're not suffering." "Pain doesn't mean I can't work. It means you shouldn't have to do it alone." I sat up slowly. "This is my company, Mara. I built it. The decisions are mine." "It's our company," she said, her voice rising. "We built it together." That wasn't entirely true. She'd helped with administrative tasks in the first 2 years, but she'd never been involved in operations. The business was mine in every meaningful sense. I didn't say that. "I'm handling it," I said instead. She shook her head and went back to folding. We didn't speak for the rest of the evening. Later that night, I pulled up the ownership documents on my laptop. I opened the LLC registration filed with the state. My name appeared as the sole member and manager. The bank accounts showed my name as primary holder. Everything pointed back to me. I saved copies to an external hard drive in a locked drawer. I didn't know exactly why, but I knew I'd need them. The suggestion came during breakfast on a Sunday morning in late July. Mara had made scrambled eggs and toast. Eldon and Sylvia were there, sitting at our kitchen table. They'd stayed the night in our guest room, something they did with increasing frequency. Eldon sat across from me, coffee mug in both hands. "We've been thinking," he said, "about the company and where things are headed." I waited. "The company's at a critical juncture," he continued. "You've built something solid, but maintaining that requires forward momentum." "The company isn't stagnating," I said. "We're on track to exceed last year's revenue by 12%. Client retention is at 93%. He waved his hand dismissively. "Numbers look good now, but you can't keep up this pace. Your back isn't getting better. You need someone with business experience to help stabilize operations. It's already stable, I said. I have systems in place. I have crew leads who handle day-to-day operations. You have employees, Sylvia interjected gently. That's not the same as having leadership at the executive level. Mara reached across and placed her hand over mine. We're not saying you can't do this. We're saying you don't have to do it alone. I pulled my hand away slowly. What exactly are you suggesting? Eldon leaned forward. I could step in as a business advisor, temporary arrangement. I've got decades of experience running a successful business. You ran a car dealership, I said flatly. This is roofing, completely different industries. Business is business, he said, jaw tightening. The fundamentals are universal. Not really, I said. Roofing requires specialized knowledge about materials, codes, safety regulations, construction techniques. His expression hardened. This is already decided, isn't it? I said quietly, looking at Mara. You've already agreed to this. Mara looked down at her plate. We thought it made sense. Without consulting me. We're consulting you now, Sylvia said smoothly. No, I said, standing slowly. The pain flared, but I didn't show it. You're presenting a decision and expecting me to accept it. I walked to my office and closed the door. The camera was on its shelf, red light steady. I opened my laptop and pulled up the company registration documents. Verified ownership structure, confirmed banking authority. Everything was exactly as it should be. Then I made a phone call. Arthur Belden answered on the second ring. He was my business attorney, methodical and precise. Kellan, he said, what's going on? I explained the situation, the pressure from Mara's parents, the suggestion that Eldon take an advisory role, the way decisions were being discussed without me. Arthur listened without interrupting. Do you want him involved? He asked. Absolutely not. Then he's not involved. You're the sole owner of the LLC. You have complete authority over all business decisions. Nobody can force you to accept an advisor without your explicit written consent. Mara's pushing for it. Mara isn't an owner, Arthur said simply. She has no legal standing to make decisions about company structure. I let that settle. What do I need to do? I asked. Nothing dramatic, Arthur said. Just maintain status quo. Don't sign anything, don't make verbal agreements, and document everything. Every conversation, every suggestion, every pressure point. I glanced at the camera. I'm already documenting, I said. Good, Arthur said. Stay consistent, stay calm, and don't let them provoke you. After I hung up, I sat quietly. Mara and her parents had left, probably to continue their conversation elsewhere. I pulled up the PetWatch app, scrolled through saved recordings, hours of footage, me working, me on calls, and other footage too, conversations in the living room, Eldon discussing the company like it was already his, Sylvia reassuring Mara this was right, Mara agreeing, uncertain but willing. I downloaded the relevant files and organized them into folders. Then I opened my calendar and circled a date 3 weeks in the future. Noah Feldren's office was in a small professional building on the east side of town, wedged between a dental practice and an insurance agency. The hallway smelled of old paper and industrial coffee, the scent of businesses that had been there for decades. His door read, in plain black letters on frosted glass, Noah Feldren, CPA. Inside was just as unpretentious. Gray filing cabinets lined one wall. A desk with neat stacks of folders and dual monitors filled the center. Noah sat behind it in the same brown blazer he'd worn to every meeting we'd ever had, something bought long ago and carefully preserved. He was 45, thin, precise, wire-rimmed glasses, gray creeping into his temples. He preferred numbers to words, data to conversation. In 8 years of handling my accounting and taxes, I'd never seen him show much emotion. I sat across from him as he pulled up my company's financials, fingers moving with practiced efficiency. Everything's clean, he said after a moment. Payroll's current, contractors paid, taxes filed, vendor accounts solid, healthy reserves, debt is manageable. Who has signing authority on the bank accounts? I asked. He looked up, curious but calm. Just you, sole authorized signer. Confirm it. Show me. He clicked through the records and turned a monitor toward me. 3 accounts, operating, payroll, reserves. Under authorized signers, 1 name, Kellan Vossel. No secondary access, no joint holders. Why are you asking? He said, making sure there are no surprises. He nodded. Anyone trying to gain access would need your signature or a court order. That would require proof of incapacity or fraud. They won't get either. Good. He closed the file. Want additional safeguards? Alerts, flags on unusual transactions. Dual authorization thresholds? Not yet. Keep everything exactly as it is. Don't change anything without my written approval. And if anyone contacts you claiming authority, verify with me first. Understood. He jotted a note. For the record, I wouldn't comply anyway. Ethics and liability require I take direction only from the registered owner. I appreciate that. He studied me briefly. Family pressure? Something like that. Document everything, he said. If this escalates, you'll want a clear paper trail. I left feeling steadier. The numbers didn't lie, and Noah's records would shut down any claim of mismanagement. From there, I drove to Arthur Belden's law office near the courthouse, on the second floor of a renovated brick building. His space was more polished, wood furniture, framed degrees, shelves of legal books that probably cost more than my truck. Arthur was waiting, a manila folder already open. 54, silver-haired, calm in the way only decades of legal battles can produce. I prepared this after our call, he said, sliding the folder over. Nothing aggressive, just formal confirmation of the current structure and your authority. Inside were 3 documents: a notarized certification listing me as sole LLC owner, a resolution affirming my exclusive control over operations, finances, and strategy, and a declaration stating that no verbal or informal agreements granted authority or ownership to anyone else. The language was clear and unambiguous, written in the precise legal terminology that left no room for interpretation or dispute. Do you want to file these with the state? Arthur asked. Not yet, I said. I want them ready, but I don't want to take any action that could be interpreted as aggressive or provocative. Not until I absolutely have to. Smart, he said. Document preparation isn't confrontational. Filing creates a public record that signals conflict. Sometimes the threat of filing is more effective than actually doing it. When would you recommend filing? If they attempt to take any concrete action. If they contact clients or vendors claiming authority. If they try to access bank accounts or make business decisions. If they retain their own attorney. Any of those would justify immediate filing followed by a cease and desist letter. I nodded, absorbing the strategy. What if this stays contained within the family? What if it's just pressure and manipulation, but no external actions? Then you maintain the status quo, Arthur said. Keep running the business professionally. Keep documentation current. Don't engage in arguments or confrontations that could be recorded or misconstrued. Stay calm and factual in all communications. That's the plan, I said. He smiled slightly. You're handling this well, Kellan. Most people in your situation would be emotional, reactive, making decisions based on anger rather than strategy. You're staying methodical. I'm tired of being managed, I said. I'm tired of being treated like I'm incompetent or incapable just because I have physical limitations. Then stop letting them, he said. You have all the legal authority you need. Use it when the time comes. We discussed a few more details about the upcoming meeting, about how to present the information, about what to expect from Eldon's reaction. Arthur was confident that if we controlled the narrative from the beginning, we could neutralize any attempt at a takeover. That evening, I went to the bank where the company accounts were held. I didn't need to conduct any actual transactions, but I wanted to establish my presence, to be seen and remembered by the staff who worked there. I wanted my visit documented in whatever security logs or records they maintained. The branch manager, a woman named Patricia, whom I'd worked with for years, greeted me by name when I approached her desk. She was in her 50s, professionally dressed, with the kind of warm efficiency that made banking feel less impersonal. Kellan, she said, smiling genuinely. Everything all right? We don't usually see you in person. Everything's fine, I said, returning the smile. I just wanted to verify that all the account information is current and accurate, making sure nothing's changed since the last time we updated everything. She pulled up my account profile on her computer, her fingers moving quickly across the keyboard. Let me check. Yes, everything looks correct. All accounts are in your name as sole holder. No changes since you opened them, no pending modifications or requests. Perfect, I said. Can you print me a summary of the account structure, just for my records? Of course, she said. She clicked a few more times, and a printer on the credenza behind her desk hummed to life. She handed me several pages showing the account details, balances, transaction history, and authorized signer information. I reviewed the pages carefully, confirming everything was exactly as it should be. Thank you, Patricia. I appreciate your time. Always happy to help, she said. If you need anything else, you know how to reach me. I left the bank with the printed documentation in a folder, another piece of evidence showing that I was actively managing and protecting the business assets. The paper trail was growing, each document another brick in the wall of protection I was building. At home, Mara was in the kitchen with her mother when I walked in. They stopped talking immediately when they heard the door open, their conversation cutting off mid-sentence in a way that confirmed I'd been the subject of discussion. "Where were you?" Mara asked, her tone hovering between curiosity and accusation. "Bank," I said simply. "Business errands." "What kind of business errands?" "The kind that keep the company running," I said, keeping my voice neutral. I walked past them toward my office without elaborating. Sylvia's voice followed me down the hallway. "It's good that you're staying involved, Kellan, that you're keeping track of things." The comment was loaded with implications. Staying involved, as if my involvement was optional, as if it was something they were graciously allowing rather than my fundamental right as the owner. I didn't respond. I went to my office and closed the door with a soft click that was somehow louder than slamming it would have been. The camera sat on its shelf, the red recording light steady. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop, pulling up the PetWatch app to review the day's footage, more conversations, more planning. Eldon had called Mara twice while I was out, both times on video chat so Sylvia could participate. She'd taken the calls in the living room, her phone propped on the coffee table, speaking in normal tones because she didn't know the camera's microphone could pick up audio from that distance. "He's still resisting," Eldon had said, his face filling Mara's phone screen. "I'll keep talking to him," Mara had replied, her voice weary. "He just needs time to understand that this is the right decision." "Don't talk," Eldon said firmly. "Insist. This isn't a negotiation. This is about protecting what you've built together. If he can't see that, then you have to see it for him." "I don't want to fight with him." "This isn't fighting," Sylvia interjected, her voice calm and reasonable. "This is taking care of your family, taking care of your future. Kellan's not thinking clearly right now. The pain, the stress, the limitations, all of it affects judgment. He needs you to be strong enough to make the hard decisions." "I know," Mara said quietly. "I just wish it didn't have to be this way." "Sometimes love means doing things that feel difficult in the moment, but are necessary for the long term," Sylvia said with practiced smoothness. "You're doing the right thing, sweetheart. Trust that." I saved the recording to my archive, adding it to the growing collection of evidence that documented their intentions and methods. Each conversation revealed more of their strategy, more of their thinking. They weren't just concerned about the business. They were actively planning to take it from me. Then I received an email. It appeared in my inbox with a chime that seemed louder than usual in the quiet office. The sender was Eldon Kravik, using his personal email address. The subject line read, "Company meeting, mandatory attendance." I opened it slowly, reading the message twice to make sure I understood exactly what I was seeing. He'd scheduled a company-wide executive video conference for 3 weeks in the future. The same date I'd circled on my calendar, though he couldn't have known that. The timing was coincidental, but perfect. The attendee list included everyone who mattered. The 3 crew leads, Noah Feldren, Arthur Belden, and several major clients who represented significant ongoing contracts. He'd even included Patricia from the bank, though I couldn't imagine how he'd gotten her contact information. The agenda, outlined in bullet points, covered future leadership structure, strategic growth planning, operational improvements, and management transition timeline. He was planning to take over my company in front of everyone who worked for it and everyone who paid for its services. He was planning to humiliate me publicly while framing it as concern and support. He was planning to strip me of control while making it look like a natural evolution, an inevitable necessity, a loving intervention. I read the email a third time, feeling something cold and focused settle in my chest. Not anger, exactly. Something calmer and more useful than anger. Clarity, purpose, the absolute certainty that I was not going to let this happen. I replied to the email with a single sentence. "Confirmed, I'll be there." Then I forwarded the email to Arthur with a brief message. "This is happening. We need to prepare." His response came within 2 minutes. "Understood. I'll have everything ready. Trust the process." I leaned back in my chair and looked at the camera. The red light blinked once, then held steady. 3 weeks. I had 3 weeks to make sure I was ready for whatever Eldon planned to do. 3 weeks to ensure that when the confrontation came, I would control the narrative. 3 weeks to turn his ambush into my victory. The dinner invitation came from Sylvia via text message to Mara on Wednesday afternoon. "Family meal Friday night. Important that everyone's there. Need to clear the air and make sure we're all working together." Mara showed me the message, her expression carefully neutral, waiting for my reaction. "We should go?" she said. "It's just dinner. It's just talking." "It's an intervention," I said, looking up from my laptop. "They're going to pressure me to agree to Eldon's involvement before the meeting. They're concerned about us, about the business, about making sure we're secure. They're concerned about control, I said. That's different from being concerned about us. But I agreed to go anyway. Refusing would have accomplished nothing except creating more conflict and making me look defensive, evasive, afraid of confrontation. Better to attend, to listen, to let them reveal more of their strategy while I maintained my composure. We drove to their house on Friday evening, just as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that would have been beautiful if I'd been in the mood to appreciate them. The Kravick house sat on 3 acres at the end of a private drive, all stone and glass and expensive landscaping, designed to impress visitors and demonstrate success. It was the kind of house that made a statement about the people who lived there. Eldon answered the door wearing pressed slacks and a button-down shirt. Dressed like this was a business dinner rather than a family meal. He shook my hand with slightly too much pressure, his grip challenging rather than welcoming. "Good to see you, Kellan," he said, his voice hearty and false. Come in, come in. Sylvia's been cooking all afternoon." Inside, the dining room table was set with formal place settings, cloth napkins, wine glasses, flickering candles, and silver holders. Classical music played softly from hidden speakers. The whole scene felt staged, choreographed for maximum psychological impact. This wasn't just dinner, this was theater. Sylvia emerged from the kitchen carrying a roasted chicken on a platter, the aroma of herbs and garlic filling the room. She set it on the table with a satisfied smile. "There we are," she said brightly. "Kellan, you sit here next to Eldon. Mara, you're across from your father." The seating arrangement was deliberate, positioning me where I'd be flanked and isolated, where I'd feel the pressure from both sides of the table. They'd planned this carefully. We sat. Eldon poured wine into the glasses without asking if anyone wanted it. Sylvia served the chicken and passed around side dishes. Roasted vegetables, garlic mashed potatoes, a green salad with vinaigrette. Everything looked perfect, magazine-worthy. The first 10 minutes of dinner were consumed with small talk. Weather observations, neighborhood gossip. A story about their neighbor's remodel project that had gone badly over budget. Bailey's recent vet checkup and how well he was doing for his age. Superficial conversation designed to create a false sense of normalcy before the real agenda emerged. Then Eldon cleared his throat and set down his fork with deliberate precision, the gesture signaling a shift in tone. "I want to talk about the meeting," he said, his eyes fixed on me with uncomfortable intensity. "The one coming up in 2 weeks. It's important that we present a unified front to the crew and the clients." "Unified in what way?" I asked, keeping my voice even and curious rather than defensive. "Unified in leadership vision, unified in strategic direction, unified in showing that the company has strong management structure going forward." "The company has strong management," I said. "It's been running successfully for years." "It's been running successfully because you've been grinding yourself into the ground," he said, leaning forward with his elbows on the table. "You're working 10, 12-hour days from that office. You barely sleep. You're in constant pain. That's not sustainable, Kellan. Eventually your body's going to break down completely, and then what happens to the business? What happens to Mara?" "I'm managing my health and my business," I said. "They're both under control." Eldon shook his head slowly, his expression a mixture of frustration and something that might have been genuine concern buried under layers of condescension. "You're not seeing the big picture. You're so focused on day-to-day operations that you're missing the structural vulnerabilities, the fundamental weaknesses in how things are set up." "What vulnerabilities?" I asked. "You," he said bluntly. "You're the single point of failure. If something happens to you, if your condition worsens, if you can't work for any reason, the entire operation collapses. You don't have succession planning, you don't have backup leadership, you don't have systems that can function independently of your direct involvement." "I have crew leads who handle operations," I said. "I have an accountant who manages finances. I have an attorney who handles legal matters. The systems exist." "Those are employees," Sylvia interjected gently, her voice carrying that particular tone of patient explanation that made me feel like a child being instructed on basic concepts. "They follow your directions, but they're not positioned to make strategic decisions or handle crisis situations. What happens if you're hospitalized? What happens if your pain becomes unmanageable? Who steps in then?" "That's not going to happen," I said. "You can't guarantee that," Eldon said firmly. "Nobody can guarantee their own health, especially with a chronic condition like yours. You need contingency plans. You need leadership structure that exists independently of your physical capacity to show up and make decisions." Mara reached across the table and put her hand on mine, her fingers trembling slightly. "Kellan, please. Just listen to what they're saying. We're all trying to help. We all want what's best for you and the business." I looked at her, really looked at her, searching for any sign that she understood what was actually happening here. That this wasn't about helping me, this was about removing me from my own company while making it seem reasonable and necessary. Her eyes were pleading, desperate for me to comply, to accept what they were offering, to stop resisting what they'd framed as inevitable and wise. Help how? I asked quietly. By taking away my authority? By installing Eldon as some kind of overseer? By treating me like I'm incompetent to run my own business? No one's saying you're incompetent, Sylvia said quickly, reaching across to pat my other hand. We're saying you're human. We're saying you have limitations that need to be acknowledged and planned around. That's not an insult. That's reality. I've already planned around them, I said, pulling both hands back from the table. I've adapted my role. I've delegated physical work to people who can do it better than I can now. I've focused on the aspects of the business where I add the most value: strategic planning, client relationships, quality control, financial oversight. That's good, Eldon said, nodding as if he were praising a student who'd grasped a difficult concept. That's exactly the kind of thinking we need, but you need to take that one step further. You need to delegate the high-level decision-making too, at least partially, so you're not carrying that entire burden alone on your shoulders. To you, I said flatly, stating what they were all dancing around. I have experience, he said, not denying it. I've run a successful business for decades. I understand financial management, strategic planning, personnel issues, market positioning. I can provide guidance and support without undermining your role or authority in the company. How does that work exactly? I asked. How do you provide guidance without undermining authority? Those two things seem fundamentally in conflict when it comes to who makes final decisions. He sighed, his patience clearly wearing thin behind the facade of concern. You maintain final decision-making power on paper. I provide advice and consultation. We discuss options together, weigh alternatives, make informed choices based on combined experience and different perspectives. It's collaborative, not authoritarian. Except when we disagree, I said. What happens then? Who makes the final call? Then we work through it like adults, he said. We find compromise. We find solutions that address everyone's concerns. That's how partnerships work. But this isn't a partnership, I said. This is my company. I'm the sole owner. There's nothing to compromise about when it comes to fundamental business decisions. His jaw tightened visibly. This is exactly the problem. You're approaching this like it's a hostile takeover instead of family trying to support family. You're being paranoid and defensive when we're offering help. Because it is a hostile takeover, I said quietly, my voice calm and certain. You're just dressing it up as concern and calling it love. The room went silent. Sylvia's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Mara pulled her hand back completely from the table. Eldon's face turned red, the color rising from his neck like a tide. That's incredibly unfair, Sylvia said, her voice sharp despite the attempted softness. We're investing our time, our energy, our emotional resources into helping you preserve what you've built. And you're accusing us of sabotage, of trying to steal from you. I'm observing behavior, I said. You've been discussing my business without including me in those discussions. You've been making plans without asking my input or permission. You've been treating me like a problem to be solved rather than a person to be consulted. That's not support, that's strategy. We're discussing options, Eldon said, his voice rising slightly. We're planning contingencies. We're trying to protect Mara's future, trying to make sure that the business that supports your family doesn't collapse because you're too stubborn to accept reality and too proud to accept help when it's offered. Reality is that I'm the owner, I said. Reality is that I'm running the business successfully despite physical limitations. Reality is that you're uncomfortable with the fact that I don't need your help, so you're manufacturing a crisis to justify inserting yourself into my company. Eldon threw his napkin on the table, the cloth landing dramatically next to his plate. You're impossible to help. You're so convinced you can do everything yourself that you can't see you're drowning. You're so busy proving you're not weak that you can't see the water closing over your head. I'm not drowning, I said. I'm swimming just fine. You're the one trying to push my head underwater while claiming you're teaching me to float. I stood up slowly, letting the chair scrape against the hardwood. Pain flared through my lower back and down my leg, predictable and sharp, but I kept my face neutral. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Thank you for dinner, I said. It was enlightening. Mara jumped up, panicked. Kellan, please don't leave like this. Just sit down. Let's talk. I'm not angry, I said, meeting her eyes. I'm just done with this conversation. There's nothing more to say right now. I walked to the door. Behind me, urgent whispers. Sylvia trying to calm Eldon. Mara saying something I couldn't quite hear. probably apologizing for me. I drove home alone through streets that had gone dark while we were at dinner. Mara stayed behind with her parents, likely for another hour of discussion about how unreasonable I was, how stubborn, how impossible. At home, the house was quiet, except for Bailey. He greeted me at the door, tail wagging, uncomplicated and sincere. I scratched behind his ears, gave him a treat, grateful for affection that required nothing but kindness. I went to my office and closed the door. The camera sat on its shelf, red light solid. Recording, as always. I opened the PetWatch app and scrolled through the afternoon footage. Mostly an empty house. But earlier, before we'd left, the camera had caught something useful. Mara and Sylvia in the living room, their voices clear. "He's not going to agree willingly," Mara said, frustrated. "He'll fight this." "Then you need to be prepared to act without his agreement," Sylvia replied calmly. "For his own good, for your future. Sometimes protecting someone means protecting them from themselves." "How?" Mara asked. "Everything's in his name. The business, the accounts." "There are ways," Sylvia said, lowering her voice. "Legal mechanisms, medical documentation, chronic pain, medication, proof of diminished capacity, if it comes to that." "Like guardianship?" Mara asked, hesitant. "Or power of attorney? I'm not saying it will happen. I'm saying you should know your options if he refuses help or becomes a risk, to himself or the business." I leaned back, staring at the screen, watching my wife and her mother calmly discuss how to strip me of autonomy, how to declare me incompetent, how to take control of everything I'd built. I saved the file, labeled it carefully, backed it up. Another piece added to the archive. Then I emailed Arthur. Subject: Urgent, new development. I attached the audio and explained what he was about to hear. He replied within 20 minutes, late on a Friday. "This changes everything. We need to move proactively. I'll prepare additional documentation this weekend. Can you meet Monday, early?" "Yes, 7 works." "Perfect." I closed the laptop and sat in the dark office, listening to the house settle. This wasn't just business anymore. This was about my right to control my own life. 2 weeks until the meeting, 2 weeks to prepare, 2 weeks to turn their strategy into my advantage. Monday morning, I met Arthur at his office at 7, before regular business hours. He was already there, sitting behind his desk with multiple folders arranged in front of him. "Come in," he said. "Close the door." I sat carefully. Arthur pushed a folder across his desk. "I listened to the recording you sent, multiple times. I also reviewed all the previous documentation." "And?" "We need to act decisively at the meeting, not defensively, proactively." He opened the folder and pulled out several documents. "First, these are updated ownership certifications, notarized and filed with the state as of this morning." I looked at the papers. My name in bold, state seal, filing stamps. "Second," he continued, "this is a formal resolution stating that no other party has been granted any authority. Dated, signed, witnessed, filed." "You filed already?" "Friday night after your email. Emergency filing. These are now official public record." He pulled out more papers. "This is a cease and desist letter, pre-drafted but not yet delivered, instructing Eldon and Sylvia to stop making claims about authority they don't possess." "We're not sending that yet," I said. "No, but it's ready. Now for the meeting itself." He turned his monitor toward me. "Executive meeting agenda, revised. You're going to control the meeting from the start. Before Eldon can present his takeover, you're going to present actual facts. Company ownership, financial health, legal authority. Then what?" "Then you play the recordings," Arthur said calmly. "Evidence showing this is a coordinated attempt to take control without your consent." I sat back. "That's aggressive." "That's necessary. They're planning to humiliate you publicly. You're going to expose their intentions first." "Mara will be there." "Yes, and that's unfortunate but unavoidable. She's chosen to participate. She has to live with consequences." "Noah's already confirmed he'll participate," Arthur continued. "He'll verify financial records during the meeting. He's bringing documentation." "What about crew leads and clients? They work for you. Once they see proof the business is stable, they'll have no reason to support changes." I nodded. "What do I say to Mara before the meeting?" "Nothing," Arthur said firmly. "Don't discuss this at all. Don't give warning that could allow them to adjust strategy. Act like you're planning to passively attend. She'll think I betrayed her." "She's already betrayed you," Arthur said quietly. I left and drove to Noah's office. "Early meeting?" he asked. "Strategy session for Friday's conference." I explained what Arthur and I had planned. Noah listened thoughtfully. "I can support that. I'll bring complete financial records, ownership documentation, bank verification." "You're comfortable participating in what's essentially a public confrontation?" I'm comfortable presenting facts, he said. The facts are that you own and successfully operate a profitable business. He poured coffee. I've seen family members try to take over businesses from owners they perceive as weak. It rarely ends well unless the owner establishes boundaries immediately. I spent the next days maintaining absolute normalcy at home, worked regular hours, took calls, managed projects, acted like nothing unusual was happening. Mara watched me carefully, probably wondering why I wasn't anxious. She tried several times to bring up the meeting. I deflected gently. I'll figure it out when we get there. Thursday evening, the night before the meeting, I was reviewing final materials when my phone buzzed with a text from Eldon. Looking forward to tomorrow. Time to move the company forward together. I didn't reply. I looked at the camera on the shelf. The red light steady. I pulled up the PetWatch app one more time, reviewed all the key recordings I'd compiled, conversations, plans, strategies discussed without me. Everything was ready. Tomorrow would be the reckoning. The morning of the meeting, I woke at 5. My back was already tight with pain, but I moved through my usual routine methodically. Shower, coffee, toast. Review of documents one final time. Mara was quiet at breakfast. She kept glancing at me. Are you nervous? She finally asked. No, I said honestly. Dad just wants to help, you know. He's not trying to hurt you. I didn't respond. I just nodded and finished my coffee. What time is the meeting? She asked. 2:00, I said. I'll be there, supporting you. I looked at her, wondering if she understood the irony. Okay, I said simply. At noon, I went to my office and closed the door. 2 hours before the meeting, I organized everything one final time, documents in order, video files queued, notes prepared. Arthur sent a text at 1:30. All set on my end. Noah's ready too. You control the narrative from the first word. Trust the process, I replied. Ready. At 1:45, I logged into the video conference platform. The meeting room was empty, just my face in a small square. The camera on the shelf was recording. Red light steady. At 1:50, others started joining. Tommy appeared first, looking uncertain. Then Frank and Luis, then clients. Mr. Patterson, the Hoffmans. Patricia from the bank. More people than expected. Eldon had cast a wide net. Noah joined at 1:55. Expression professionally neutral. Arthur appeared at 1:58, his background showing his law office. At exactly 2:00, Eldon's face filled the center square. He was in a home office, dressed in a suit jacket, expression confident. Sylvia appeared next to him. Mara joined last at 2:01, face pale, eyes searching for my square. I didn't wave back. Eldon unmuted himself and cleared his throat. Thank you all for joining us today, he began authoritatively. This meeting is about the future of Vossel Roofing and ensuring the company continues to thrive. He clicked something, and a PowerPoint slide appeared. Vossel Roofing, Transition Plan for Sustainable Growth. As most of you know, Eldon continued, Kellan has been dealing with significant health challenges. While he's done admirable work managing from home, the reality is, I unmuted myself. Eldon, I said calmly, I'm going to stop you there. He paused. Kellan, if you could just... No, I said. This is my company. This is my meeting. You were invited to attend, not to run it. Silence filled the room. Every face turned toward their cameras. I appreciate everyone being here, I continued. What you're about to see is important documentation about Vossel Roofing's ownership, financial health, and operational status. I shared my screen. The LLC registration appeared. This is the official company registration. I am the sole member and sole manager. No other owners, no partners. This company is mine and remains entirely under my control. I let that sit. Second, I switched documents. These are bank records for all company accounts. The records appeared, showing my name clearly. Noah, can you confirm what these show? Noah unmuted. I confirm that Kellan Vossel is the only person with signing authority on all business accounts. No other person has access. Patricia, can you confirm from the bank's perspective? Patricia unmuted nervously. Yes, that's correct. Mr. Vossel is the sole account holder. Thank you, I said. I switched documents. Third, here are financial records for the past 3 years. Noah, can you walk everyone through what these show? Noah's voice was steady. The financial records show Vossel Roofing has been consistently profitable. Revenue has grown by an average of 8% annually. All debts are current. The company maintains healthy cash reserves. The business is fundamentally sound. Thank you, I said. So to be clear, This company is solely owned by me, financially healthy and operating successfully. There is no crisis, no emergency, no reason for any management changes. Eldon's face went red. Kellan, I'm not finished, I said. Now I want to address why this meeting was called and what's actually been happening. I switched to the video file. The first recording began. Eldon's voice filled the room. He's still resisting. Mara's voice. I'll keep talking to him. Eldon. Don't talk. Insist. This isn't a negotiation. Faces on screen showed confusion. Shock. I played the next clip. Sylvia's voice. You can't expect him to keep this up forever. Mara. I just don't know what to do. Sylvia. You protect what you've built together. Another clip. Sylvia. There are ways. Legal mechanisms, medical documentation, proof of diminished capacity. Mara. You mean like guardianship? Sylvia. Or power of attorney based on medical necessity. I stopped playback. These recordings were captured by a pet camera in my home office over the past 6 weeks, a camera installed to monitor our dog, but which had a very good view of conversations about my company and plans to remove my authority. Every face was frozen. Tommy looked shocked. Frank looked angry. Clients looked uncomfortable. Mara was crying, hand over her mouth. Eldon and Sylvia looked struck. Arthur, can you explain what we're looking at legally? Arthur unmuted, voice calm. What we're looking at is evidence of a coordinated attempt to take control of a private business without the owner's consent. Discussions about guardianship and power of attorney suggest intent to use legal mechanisms to strip Mr. Vossel of his rights based on false claims. He paused. For the record, I represent Kellan Vossel and Vossel Roofing. All ownership documentation has been filed with the state. Any attempt to alter company structure or access accounts without Mr. Vossel's written consent will result in immediate legal action. Silence was absolute. I want everyone to understand something, I said. I have a back injury. It causes pain, but pain doesn't equal incompetence. I have successfully run this company for 15 years, including the past 2 years from home. The numbers prove it. I paused. What's been happening is not concern. It's an attempt to take something that doesn't belong to the people trying to take it. I looked at Mara's square, still crying. The camera was installed to watch the dog, I said quietly, but I adjusted it, 2 inches to the left. I knew what was happening. I documented it, because I needed everyone to see the truth. I took a breath. This meeting is over. To my crew leads, nothing changes. To my clients, all contracts remain in force. To everyone else, thank you for your time. I looked at Eldon's square. If you attempt to contact my employees, clients, or vendors with any claims about authority, you will receive a cease and desist letter within the hour. Are we clear? Eldon's mouth opened and closed. Are we clear? I repeated. Yes, he finally managed. I looked at Mara's square one final time. She understood. The camera, the adjustment, the planning, nothing she'd seen was an accident. The company is mine, I said. It stays mine. I ended the meeting. The screen went black. The house was silent. I sat at my desk, hands flat on the surface, breathing steadily. The meeting was over. The confrontation complete. My phone started buzzing. Text messages flooding in. Tommy. Holy hell, boss. We're behind you 100%. Frank. That took guts. Respect. Luis. Company's in good hands. Mr. Patterson. Our contracts remain solid. What I witnessed only increased my confidence. Messages kept coming, crew members, clients, Patricia from the bank, but 3 missed calls from Eldon, 2 from Sylvia, a long text I deleted without reading, nothing from Mara. I stood slowly and walked to the kitchen, poured water, looked out at Bailey sleeping under the oak tree. The bedroom door was still closed, no sound from behind it. I went back to my office and opened email, found Arthur's message. Perfectly executed. Documentation is solid. You did the right thing. I replied, Thank you. Couldn't have done this without your guidance. His response came quickly. You had the courage to stand up for yourself. I spent the next hour responding to messages, reassuring people, maintaining normalcy. Around 5, I heard the bedroom door open. Footsteps, Mara moving around, opening closets. She appeared in the doorway 20 minutes later with a small suitcase. I'm going to stay with my parents for a while, she said, voice flat. Okay, I said. I need time to think. I understand. She looked at me, eyes red. You humiliated me, in front of everyone. I exposed the truth, I said calmly. You made me look like I was trying to steal from you. Were you not? I asked quietly. Were you not discussing guardianship? Power of attorney? She flinched. We were trying to protect you. From what? From me successfully running my business? From you collapsing under the weight of something you can't sustain, she said, voice rising. Struggling isn't the same as failing, I said. You decided I was broken, then built a strategy around fixing me whether I wanted it or not. We were trying to help. No, you were trying to control. She shook her head, tears starting again. I don't even know who you are, the man who planned this, who recorded us. That's not the person I married. The person you married is exactly who I've always been. Someone who doesn't give up his rights just because other people decide he should. She looked at the camera on the shelf, now turned off. That camera, she said. You moved it on purpose, the first day. Yes. Everything since then. You were gathering evidence. I was documenting what was happening. You let us think we were helping. You let me think I was doing the right thing. I let you show me who you'd become, I said. She wiped her eyes. What happens now? That depends on you, I said. She picked up her suitcase. I don't know if I can forgive this. I don't know if I can forgive what you tried to do, I said. She walked to the door, then stopped. The business was never ours, was it? It was always just yours. Yes, I said. It was always mine. She left. I heard her car start, gravel crunching under tires, the sound fading into distance. I sat in the quiet office. The pain in my back was still there. But the company was mine. The house was mine. The truth was mine. I looked at the camera on the shelf. The red light was dark. The weekend passed in strange quietness. No calls from Mara, no messages, just silence where there used to be a marriage. I worked through Saturday and Sunday, maintaining the routine that had sustained me for 2 years. Projects needed managing, clients needed updates. The business didn't care about personal drama. Tommy called Saturday afternoon. Boss, just wanted to check in, make sure you're okay. I'm fine, I said. Thanks for asking. That meeting was intense, but you handled it right. We've got your back. I appreciate that. Frank and Luis feel the same way. We all do. Whatever you need. Monday morning, Arthur called. How are you holding up? Managing, I said. Any contact from the Kravicks? None. Radio silence. Good. That means they understood the message. But I'm keeping the cease and desist ready just in case. Understood. What about Mara? She's staying with her parents. We haven't spoken since Friday. That might be for the best right now. Let things settle. Tuesday, Noah stopped by the office unexpectedly. Wanted to give you these in person, he said, handing me a folder. Updated financial reports. Everything current through last week. I reviewed the documents. Looks solid. Better than solid. You had a good month. 3 new contracts came in over the weekend. Really? Word travels fast. People respect what you did. Standing up for yourself. They see strength, not weakness. Wednesday, I received an email from Patricia at the bank. Mr. Vossel, I wanted to let you know that we received an inquiry yesterday from Eldon Kravick about your business accounts. We informed him that we cannot discuss account details with anyone other than the account holder. He was not pleased, but we held firm. Your accounts remain secure. I forwarded the email to Arthur. His response? Expected. He's testing boundaries. Good that the bank shut it down. Let me know if he tries anything else. Thursday evening, a week after the meeting, my phone rang. Mara. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Hello? Kellan. Her voice was quiet. Can we talk? We're talking now. I mean in person. Can I come by the house? I thought about it. When? Tomorrow afternoon, around 2? Okay. She hung up without saying goodbye. Friday at 2, her car pulled into the driveway. I watched from the office window as she sat in the driver's seat for a long moment before getting out. She came to the door. I let her in. We sat in the living room. Bailey immediately went to her, tail wagging. She scratched his ears absently. How have you been? She asked. Working, managing, the usual. I've been thinking, she said, about everything, about what happened, about what I did. I waited. My parents are furious with you. They think you set them up, that you manipulated the whole situation. I documented the truth, I said. I know. I understand that now. What I didn't understand before is how it felt from your side, being treated like you couldn't handle your own life, being discussed like you weren't there. It felt like betrayal, I said simply. She nodded, tears starting. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, Kellan. I thought I was helping. I thought I was protecting our future. But I was letting them convince me you were less than you are. Yes, I said, you were. Can you forgive me? I looked at her. I don't know yet. That's the honest answer. Fair, she said quietly. Can I come back? Not to how things were, but to try to figure out what comes next? Are you willing to cut contact with your parents? I asked. She looked startled. What? Your parents tried to take my company. They discussed legal mechanisms to declare me incompetent. They manipulated you into participating. If you come back, if we try to rebuild, I need to know they're not part of our lives anymore. They're my parents, Kellan. And they're my enemies. You can't have both. Not after what happened. She was quiet for a long time. I need to think about that, she finally said. Take all the time you need. She stood. I'll call you. She left. I sat in the living room with Bailey, his head on my knee. The company was mine. The house was mine. The future was uncertain. But I was still standing. 2 weeks later, the phone rang at 9 a.m. Arthur. We have a problem, he said. What kind? Eldon filed a complaint with the State Business Licensing Board. Claims you're operating the company while impaired by pain medication. Alleges safety violations and compromised decision-making. I felt cold. Can he do that? He did. It's frivolous, but we have to respond. I'll need medical documentation showing you're competent and not impaired. I'll get it. I called my doctor that afternoon, explained the situation. He agreed to provide a detailed assessment. 3 days later, I had the documentation. Clean bill of mental health, confirmation that pain medication was managed appropriately and didn't impair cognitive function, statement that I was fully capable of managing business operations. Arthur filed the response. The licensing board dismissed Eldon's complaint within a week. One more boundary tested, Arthur said. One more failure on their part. The final call came on a Thursday evening. Mara. I've made my decision, she said. And? I can't cut off my parents completely. They're wrong about what they did, but they're still my family. Then we can't rebuild, I said. I know. Her voice broke. I'm filing for separation. My attorney will send papers next week. Okay. I'm sorry, Kellan. For all of it. I know you are. She hung up. I sat in my office, looking at the camera on the shelf. The red light was off. Had been off since the meeting. I'd won. The company was mine, secure, protected, growing. But the cost had been everything else. The phone buzzed. Tommy. Boss, we just landed the Riverside commercial project. Biggest contract in company history. I smiled, despite everything. That's great news. Celebration drinks tonight? Maybe tomorrow. Got some things to handle. You got it, boss. I hung up and looked around the office. The desk where I'd built an empire despite a broken back. The camera that had captured truth. The window overlooking the yard where Bailey slept peacefully. I'd fought for this. The life continued.